This is an overwhelming room. To see all of you here tonight is extremely moving. And present in this room collectively are people who have been witness to my entire life so far. And actually, if you were paying attention to the slideshow, you've all been witness to my entire life so far. But from family, my parents, one of my cousins, Vivian, one of my siblings, Kenton, Eagle Scout, to high school and college classmates, to from all the way on Chatham at the end of the Cape, Roz Coleman, who provided Jody a home away from home during her foreign exchange from North Dakota to UMass Amherst, to Reverend Bill Coleman, who not only assisted in our marriage prep, but co-officiated at our wedding. To my EMSEAL family, my work family, incredible representation here. Through this award, I discovered that I have 4 Eagle Scouts working at EMSEAL, 3 of them here tonight, 1 out in Oregon. Thanks, guys. And to their leader and my friend Dan O'Hare, with whom I'm proud to share the principle-centered management of our company. To Monsignor Mike and Pastor John, whose leadership enriches the spiritual lives of our community and makes service like the annual Appalachian Service Project such a force of good in the world. And to my numerous colleagues in the room, volunteer and professional in public service. To the representatives of our legislative delegation, and Leah, my particular note to Carolyn Dykema, who has stood shoulder to shoulder with Jody and with me on difficult issues around substance abuse policy. To Dennis Callahan and Jody's prodigal sisters in the book group, and to other dear friends that so enrich our lives. To the Scouts, the Good Scout Committee, and the Scout executives, both local and national, and of course to my sons, Jordan in Spain and here in spirit, and Benedict, who teach, inspire, entertain, and challenge us constantly. And then, of course, to my bride, Jody, without whom, really, I'm just a puddle of potential. And my co-muse, co-conscience, co-parent, and life, love, and partner. Thank you all so much for being here. The acknowledgement of my peers, and particularly such an involved and committed group, is humbling, and I'm honored at your recognition. I have wrestled with the idea of accepting this honor, as I have been so vexed over the years by the Boy Scouts of America policy of discrimination. Scouting was a large part of my life in South Africa, actually the place where Lord Baden-Powell, during his service in the British Army during the Anglo-Boer Wars, formulated much of what became the tenets of the Boy Scout movement worldwide. I have a huge respect for the lessons of character, connection to nature, and self-sufficiency that Scouting teaches youth. I suspect a large part of the confidence that I have had in confronting the world is rooted in those experiences of skill development, orienteering, survival, service to others, and so many more that I had as a Scout. I resumed Scouting briefly as a Scout parent and assistant in one of Westborough's troops with Jordan, my older son. However, I suspended my involvement about a decade ago, as I never could reconcile the policy of discrimination. This conflict presented for me one of the most difficult dilemmas of parenting. How could I deny the experience so formative to me, to my boys? Yet how could I give them that experience and explain to them and their gay family and friends why we were involved in an organization that practiced a discrimination that was never right, and particularly in this day and age, is inexcusable? I could as easily have chosen the other way. I could as convincingly have made the case that the lessons of Scouting, as profound as they can be, might outweigh the conflict I felt around discrimination. This might have left me to teach the lesson of tolerance outside of Scouting, as I suspect many of those involved are doing, rather than to find other ways to teach my sons the many other lessons available through Scouting. I begrudge no one the personal decision they have made in this regard. For me, however, my connection to this conundrum has very deep roots. As much as Scouting formed an essential part of my character, so did growing up in South Africa under apartheid, the explicit policy of the government at the time to deny the most basic rights to non-white people for no other reason than the genes with which they were born. After leaving South Africa at age 14, the reconciliation of my privileged white upbringing with the black South African experience took place during my intellectual awakening at UMass Amherst. I had several poignant experiences during which I met and interacted with black South Africans for the first time as peers. These interactions were sometimes difficult, sometimes tense, and once teetered on the verge of violence. For the only time in my life, I looked into the eyes of someone and saw pure hatred. I was seen as an oppressor and responsible for the horrors of discrimination committed in the name of moral and genetic superiority. Through that process, I came to understand the cruel and false truths of discrimination in every form. Another of these individuals became an important compass in my development. Mzamo, I learned, grew up not an hour from where I did in South Africa, yet in a parallel universe. He was one of 9 children. His parents, despite the poverty forced on them by the denial of the basic right of self-determination and access to the basic wisdom of formal education, nevertheless understood the tenets of success. They understood, among other things, that good nutrition is essential to brain development and learning. So of their 9 children, they recognized the promise in Mzamo and chose him from their family to fully succeed. Consequently, on the occasions that the family could afford meat with a meal, it was given to Mzamo. When there was milk to drink, Mzamo got the biggest share. He excelled in the rudimentary blacks-only education system and earned a coveted place in the one black university in South Africa at the time. From there, he won a rare scholarship to study in America. He carried that burden of the sacrifice of his parents and siblings with him. Mzamo finished his MBA at Cornell and his PhD at UMass, where he is now a professor in the Eisenberg School of Management. I suspect he has made as good as is possible on some form of recompense for his family. Mzamo changed me. He patiently but persistently held a mirror before me. And gradually, the falsehoods of discrimination that had been sowed in me by the indoctrination and rationalizations of an out-of-touch institution were overtaken. This gave room for me to recognize the lessons of tolerance that had been gently and very carefully, but never too publicly, for fear of government retribution, being sown in me by caring, loving, and enlightened parents. The lessons of Scouting are special and so necessary for youth and young adults, perhaps more now than ever. Popular culture offers very little in the way of positive role models, and our electronic and sedentary lives need an antidote like never before. Regardless of sexual orientation, these lessons must be available to all youth. The rewards of mentorship must likewise be available to all adults. And they must come without the lesson that morality can be parsed with a rationale that has no more place in today's society than does the policy of South Africa's thankfully defunct apartheid. I still have my South African Scout uniform, complete with the merit badges I was so proud of. It hangs, however, at the back of my closet. I've never found it in me to throw it away. It represents the full promise of what Scouting could be, and I hold out hope that I might someday display it and share with my sons fully the path it represents. I accept this honor with gratitude. I accept it with deep respect, as our local Knox Trail Council has always operated out of an enlightened position of inclusion, despite the national policy. The recent change in the national policy to allow participation of gay youth through age 17 is a welcome and positive step. However, ironically, or perhaps intentionally, it further reveals the absurdity of policies of discrimination. It says that at around the age at which we bestow on them the highest honor in Scouting, the Eagle Scout, we then strip them of a future role in Scouting leadership and mentorship as adults. The physical award itself will be assigned to a hopeful place of honor next to my Scout uniform in my closet, until such a time as the Boy Scouts of America rescinds forever their policy of discrimination, and I display them together with pride. As recognition of service by my peers, I am truly grateful, without qualification. There is nowhere in my service work that I am not shoulder to shoulder with dozens of other good Scouts, all of whom give generously of their time and resources in improving our community, our country, and our world. And all of them are as deserving of this recognition as am I. Thank you all very much.